My parents made a concerted effort to persuade me to call off my engagement party, insisting that we prioritize celebrating my younger brother Leon's recent graduation instead. Despite their persistent attempts, I stood firm in my decision, which has now led to significant tension within our family. As a result, many relatives are now upset with me because they chose to attend my engagement party rather than Leon's graduation celebration. I'm a 28-year-old man with a 26-year-old brother, Leon, who has just completed his studies at community college. Around the same period, I became engaged to Nina, my high school sweetheart, who is also 28 years old. Our relationship has spanned a decade, and we felt it was the perfect time to formalize our commitment to each other. 2 weeks ago, I proposed to her, and shortly after, we decided to host an engagement party at our home to celebrate this significant milestone. We sent out the invitations last weekend, and the party was held 5 days later. However, the ensuing drama has been so overwhelming and perplexing that I'm struggling to comprehend the full scope of what's happening. The entire ordeal began when I extended invitations to my immediate family, my parents and Leon. Not long after, my parents called me, adamantly insisting that I cancel my engagement party. This request left me utterly confused, as I couldn't fathom the reason behind their sudden opposition. When I stood my ground and refused to cancel the event, they revealed that they had already planned a graduation party for Leon on the same day as my engagement celebration. Although they hadn't sent out their own invitations yet, their intention was to do so on the very evening I sent out mine. They argued that it was essential for one of us to step back to ensure that both significant life events could be celebrated without clashing or causing unnecessary conflict. Given that we all live under the same roof, hosting two major events on the same day was likely to lead to considerable tension, which they were keen to avoid. To be honest, my relationship with my immediate family is not particularly close. While I maintain amicable relationships with other relatives, my bond with my parents and Leon is strained at best. This lack of closeness is precisely why they were unaware of my plans to host an engagement party concurrently with their intended graduation celebration. Our interactions are limited to occasional exchanges, congratulating each other on major milestones like my engagement and Leon's graduation, sending greetings on birthdays and holidays, and the like. Beyond these infrequent interactions, there is little communication between us. When my parents demanded that I cancel my engagement party to prioritize Leon's graduation, I was resolute in my decision. I clearly communicated that I would not back down, emphasizing that while Leon's achievement in graduating from community college is noteworthy, my engagement to Nina, the love of my life with whom I've spent a decade, holds greater significance for me. I made it abundantly clear that I wasn't intentionally undermining Leon's accomplishments. As a compromise, I suggested that since they hadn't yet sent out their invitations, they could postpone their party to a different date. I believed this was a fair and reasonable solution, but my parents and Leon were both infuriated by my stance. This reaction was hardly surprising, given that Leon has always been the golden child in our family. Reflecting on our childhood, it's evident that every achievement of Leon's was lavishly celebrated, while mine were often understated or overlooked entirely. I remember feeling a deep sense of disparity when I was just 7 years old. On my 5th birthday, the celebration was modest. Only a few close friends from the neighborhood and some of my parents' friends were present. My parents believed that I wouldn't remember the party when I grew older, so they opted for a subdued affair. In stark contrast, when Leon turned 5, they went all out, renting a venue to host an extravagant themed party for him. This pattern of favoritism continued throughout our school years. When I graduated from middle school, the acknowledgement I received was minimal, just a pat on the back and a few words of congratulations. Meanwhile, Leon's middle school graduation was marked by another grand celebration. The same dynamic persisted when I completed high school and later, when I graduated from college. My achievements were met with only a few encouraging words, while Leon always had significant parties to commemorate his milestones. This consistent favoritism became painfully obvious to me after middle school, prompting me to distance myself from my parents and Leon once I moved out for college. Although I didn't sever ties completely, since my parents were still covering my college expenses, I gradually stopped maintaining regular contact. Once I secured a job, I ceased communicating with them altogether. While I remained civil whenever our paths crossed, there was no genuine effort to keep in touch from either side. Neither of us had any particular complaints about the situation. We had simply adapted to the imbalance in our relationship as best as we could. Additionally, my relationship with Leon deteriorated over the years. Growing up, we were constantly at odds, either fighting or making snide remarks at each other. By the time we reached high school, we had mutually decided that it was best to stop speaking altogether. Leon had become a different person, largely due to our parents' favoritism. He was spoiled, entitled, and generally difficult to be around, a sentiment that was widely shared among those who knew our family. Despite his troublesome behavior in high school, including several near expulsions, our parents never held his missteps against him. Leon's decision-making further strained our relationship. Initially, he chose not to attend college to join a startup that his friends had launched, which focused on creating graphic printed t-shirts for teens and young adults. Unfortunately, the venture was unsuccessful, leading to the failure of the business and squandering our parents' investment money. Despite this, our parents continued to support him without any visible frustration or disappointment. Eventually, Leon decided to pursue a degree in business at community college, though his academic performance was subpar, necessitating several gap years. Nevertheless, our parents remained unbothered by his choices, further highlighting the imbalance in their treatment of us. When my parents insisted that I cancel my engagement party to celebrate Leon's graduation, I felt it was only fair to prioritize my own significant life event. I explained to them that I had already sent out the invitations and couldn't undo that, suggesting that they could postpone their party since they hadn't yet invited anyone. My parents reacted with intense anger, accusing me of undermining Leon and harboring jealousy towards his achievements. They escalated the situation by claiming that my long-standing favoritism towards Leon was unbearable, making me feel like the worst person in the world for refusing to cancel my own celebration. In an attempt to prevent further drama, I tried to reason with them, but they were completely unreceptive to any form of compromise. Growing increasingly frustrated, I told them that they were free to have their party on the same day as mine, but I would not make any changes to accommodate them or Leon. At that point, I decided to end the conversation and block them, effectively cutting off all lines of communication. Leon didn't reach out to me either, maintaining our estranged relationship. For the subsequent 4 days, I didn't hear from my parents or Leon. During this period, I learned from other relatives that invitations to Leon's graduation party were still being sent out for the same day as my engagement party. I was keen to avoid involving any other family members in the ongoing drama, so I chose to remain silent for the first 2 days, allowing relatives to decide which event they wanted to attend without any pressure or interference from me. Deep down, I was hurt by the possibility that fewer people might show up to my party, but I understood that I couldn't force anyone to attend. 3 days ago, a cousin informed me that my parents had been actively discouraging everyone from attending my engagement party. They accused me of intentionally scheduling it on the same day as Leon's graduation to overshadow him. According to my cousin, my parents had been contemplating this strategy for weeks, but when I sent out my invitations, it caught them off guard. Feeling unfairly maligned, I decided to respond by sharing the truth with everyone invited to my party. I explained the situation from my perspective, highlighting how Leon had always been favored and how my parents' expectations were unreasonable. I requested that if any relatives chose to believe my parents over me, they should refrain from maintaining contact with me. The message was clear and direct, and I was anxious about the potential reactions. Fortunately, most relatives responded positively, understanding my position and supporting me. They recognized the unequal treatment Leon and I had received from our parents since childhood. Many assured me they would attend my party, and last night, the event was a tremendous success. Almost everyone invited showed up without hesitation, sensing the truth behind my parents' accusations. People appreciated that I stood my ground and chose not to yield to my parents' demands, acknowledging the unfairness I had endured throughout my childhood. The party was a joyous occasion where I celebrated my engagement with friends and supportive family members, realizing that many relatives sided with me regarding our parents' favoritism. It was a night of happiness and validation, confirming that I wasn't alone in feeling mistreated. However, my happiness was short-lived. This morning, my parents and Leon showed up at my doorstep, visibly intoxicated, demanding to speak with me. I had no intention of letting them in and initially wanted to call the police, but Nina convinced me to engage in conversation to resolve the matter once and for all. Reluctantly, I allowed them to enter, hoping for a peaceful discussion. However, as soon as they stepped inside, my parents began hurling accusations at me. They claimed I was incredibly jealous of Leon, and had deliberately sabotaged his graduation party to steal the spotlight. They also insisted that their own party had a poor turnout, because attendees left early to attend mine. Despite my attempts to explain the truth, their anger and accusations drowned out any reasonable discussion. Seeing no progress in the conversation, Nina intervened, threatening to call the police if they didn't leave immediately. Reluctantly, they exited, but not before hurling derogatory names and causing further distress by slamming the door so hard that the windows shook. I was furious and tempted to retaliate, but chose to let it go. An hour later, we received a message from an unknown number, likely a friend or someone using their contact information, stating that despite everything, we were still family. They expressed disappointment that I chose to hold my engagement party on the same day as Leon's graduation, suggesting that Leon's graduation wasn't a significant enough reason to overshadow my milestone. They tried to minimize Leon's achievement, especially considering his recent business failure, and attempted to paint their actions as an effort to cheer him up. However, I couldn't see it that way and recognized their message as classic manipulation. Nina felt conflicted too, unsure whether my parents were genuinely sorry, or just trying to manipulate the situation. In response, I addressed some criticisms regarding my relatives' lack of support. I clarified that while my parents consistently favored Leon, my other relatives had always tried to support me, often intervening to highlight the unfair treatment we both received. Despite their efforts, my parents remained indifferent, and I had long ceased expecting equality from them. I emphasized that my relationship with the rest of my family remained strong and unaffected by the favoritism at home. I reiterated that the conflict was solely between my parents, Leon, and me, and I had no desire to involve other family members unnecessarily. A few days passed, and after reading numerous comments on my original post, I felt no need to apologize for my stance. I kept my parents and Leon blocked, including the number that sent the earlier message. For the past 3 days, there was no contact from them or our relatives, except for a surprising visit from my mother. Unlike my father and Leon, she's usually quieter, so I decided to let her in, hoping for a mature conversation. She expressed regret over recent events and apologized on behalf of herself, my father, and Leon. However, I wasn't convinced by her apology since it wasn't accompanied by her family's presence. She continued by mentioning a previous incident where Nina had threatened to call the police on my father, claiming it was disrespectful behavior. She expected us to apologize for our actions, which felt unjust given that we had simply allowed her and her family to enter our home. Annoyed by her continued accusations and lack of accountability, I told her that while I appreciated her attempt to apologize, it was unnecessary. I believed that even in her solitary apology, her family's pride prevented genuine reconciliation. I expressed that neither Nina nor I owed them an apology, and we didn't intend to engage further. Despite her refusal to leave calmly, Nina stood by me, and I reiterated that I no longer wanted any interaction with my family. After a brief argument, my mother finally left, and although we were late for work, I felt a sense of closure, determined to avoid any future confrontations by calling the police if they tried to visit again. 3 weeks have now passed since my last update, and I had hoped the turmoil would have subsided by now. However, last night my parents decided to visit Nina's parents, hoping to mend bridges. Given that our families are acquainted and live close by, my parents showed up at Nina's house around 10 p.m. to discuss our relationship and their grievances. Initially, Nina's parents were unsure how to handle the situation, aware of our recent disputes, but they eventually let my parents in to avoid being rude. During the conversation, my parents lamented their perceived failures in raising me, expressing frustration that I turned out the way I did while praising Leon as the perfect son. They claimed Leon stayed with them out of loyalty in their old age, ignoring the financial dependency he actually had. As the evening progressed and it became clear that my parents and Nina's parents had consumed some alcohol, the conversation took a strange turn. My parents began criticizing Nina, accusing her of insulting them during a previous visit and acting out of character now that she's engaged. They revealed their plan to withhold financial support for our wedding, hoping this pressure would force us to apologize and align with their expectations. I couldn't understand why they involved Nina's parents, who have always had a healthy relationship with us, unlike my own parents. After my parents left, Nina's parents called us to explain the bizarre encounter. Surprisingly, we all ended up laughing about the absurdity of the situation. Nina's parents were understanding and didn't take offense, recognizing the dysfunction of my parents. They assured us that they knew the truth about my parents' behavior and wouldn't let them disrupt our lives again. Feeling relieved, I decided to unblock my parents, warning them to stay away from the rest of the family or face legal consequences. I hoped this ultimatum would deter them from any future interference. Nearly a year has now passed since I last shared an update, and during this time, Nina and I have cut all contact with my parents and Leon. Reflecting on the past year, I can honestly say it's been the best of my life. 2 months ago, Nina and I finally tied the knot, surrounded by all the loved ones who truly support us. Our wedding was a joyous celebration, and everyone we care about attended without any drama. We recently returned from a blissful honeymoon, fully embracing our married life. My parents and Leon never reached out to congratulate us, which I'm partly relieved about, as it spared me from having to interact with them. I'm thoroughly enjoying my married life and eagerly anticipating the future with Nina by my side, feeling confident and content despite the challenges we faced with my family. Throughout this tumultuous period, Nina and I have grown stronger together, finding solace and support in each other. Our shared experiences have deepened our bond, and we've learned to navigate the complexities of family dynamics with grace and understanding. The past year has taught us the value of prioritizing our happiness and well-being over the demands of a dysfunctional family environment. As we move forward, we remain committed to building a life filled with love, mutual respect, and unwavering support for one another. Despite the hardships, I'm grateful for the lessons learned and the resilience developed through these experiences. My focus is now firmly on the future, cherishing the moments of joy and love that Nina and I share, and leaving behind the negativity that once overshadowed our lives. In conclusion, the decision to prioritize my engagement and eventual marriage over my parents' and brothers' conflicting celebrations was a pivotal moment in my life. It marked the beginning of a journey towards self-empowerment and personal happiness, free from the constraints of familial favoritism and manipulation. While the path was fraught with challenges and emotional turmoil, the outcome has been overwhelmingly positive. Nina and I are now embarking on a new chapter together, supported by those who truly care for us and understanding the importance of maintaining healthy boundaries. As I look back, I'm proud of the strength I exhibited in standing up for what I believe in, and I'm excited for the endless possibilities that lie ahead for us.